Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kind for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Guess what? I just ran upstairs just in time. The air conditioner guy just left and finally got some air on. It's working. I am not going to be burning up tonight. I am excited. I'm ecstatic. Right now, I don't even know what the temperature is in Kingwood. I'm going to look it up. Let's see what it is in Kingwood. Let's see. Come on. Okay, Google, what's the temperature in Kingwood? Because it's hot, folks. It's hot. Let's see what it says.
It's currently 103 degrees.
It's 103 degrees in Kingwood right now. 103 degrees in Kingwood right now. Welcome aboard, Alistair Waters. She said she can participate today. Love to have you, beautiful. Bridge MCP is in the house. Melanie Keelan, segunda vez today. De Barcelona, Spain. As well with us is Michael Rudnin, the one and only. Michael Rudnin. As well with us is Paul Fleming, the young man, the powerhouse from Atlanta, Georgia, Paul Fleming Sr. How you doing, my brother? Who else is in the house with us so far? I don't want to miss anybody in the beginning. I think I got Michael already. If I missed you, forgive me. If I missed you, forgive me. Alistair said it is 102 in Conroe. Conroe is a bit northwest of where I am right now. It's a bit northwest of where I am right now. So I feel you, girl. I feel you. It is crazy, this heat. But you know what? Like I said, I'm like ecstatic because it's like I got the air working. I've got the air working. Let's hope it stays working because it's hot here in Texas. Of course, I don't know that I want to see the electric bill this month because it's going to be ridiculous. I've looked at the amount of wattage that I'm using. It's completely ridiculous. Thank you for being happy for me. Lee Grant is in the house. He says, Egberto, what did you think of singer Oliver Anthony's Richmond, north of Richmond? I saw that, but I don't, that stuff about Richmond, north of Richmond. No. We'll go into that another time, okay? We promise, go into that another time. Let's see what it's got. Bruce says, I am caught up. There are some good entries only by Michael Leaner. Navigating the poly crisis, life in turbulent times by Michael Lerner. I haven't read them. I just passed them along to you, Bruce. After you post them, I go ahead and I take a scan of them. Michael Rodney said, last month my electric bill was over $200. My usual electric bill is under $50. It is crazy. Rodney, let me tell you, mine is going to be probably $700 plus this month. It's ridiculous, but hey, what can I say? It's 87 in Georgia. In Atlanta, Georgia, it's 87 degrees. Oh, you guys are so lucky. That is like winter for us. Egberto, the suffering is about to spread. Axios, expanding heat wave engulfing much of Texas threatens central U.S. That's a shame, but it's going to come. It's going to come. Let's see what else I got. Michael Rudnin for Eric. Eric, I'm reading this for you if you're here yet. I hope you're here yet because Rudnin wants me to read this to you. Over the past year, inflation in the United States has tumbled from 9% all the way to 3%, softening most of the price pressures that have gripped the nation for more than 2 years. In other words, good things are happening. It doesn't matter how much you guys talk down the economy. Good things are happening. And all of us here that believe in society, let's make sure and talk about the good things happen in the economy. You don't have to love Biden. I sure don't. But again, let's not allow a charlatan to get back into office on false premises. Like I said in one of my videos, Biden is acceptable to me. I want a very progressive person, but I'm pragmatic as well. And he's an acceptable president right now for what America needs. And I think there are a lot of people that he can get that others won't. All right, let's see what else we've got here. Paul, I think I saluted Paul already. Eric Hayes is in the house. He says, sounds like the progressive commissioners are lying and let their lackey boy do it, as Tatum has history of screwing up elections. Well, you can go ahead and you can hyperventilate about an election that's long gone instead of worrying about the election to come. What we have to make sure is that our elections are not controlled by the charlatans and the thieves in Austin. And I think we'll do a good job of doing that. Daniel Ledo says the whole country, left and right, gay and straight, Marxist and patriot alike, are all loving this. I don't know what it is, and I can't play the video, so why don't you give me a little bit of context, my brother Ledo? Bruce says, my solar cells are only covering 50% of my needs. 76 degrees cool. Well, you know what, Bruce? You are lucky, 50% coverage, but you are still doing great. If I had 50% coverage right now, that would mean a $700 utility bill would drop to $350, right? That's a hell of a savings, and I think it's actually going to be more than $700. Anyway, Paul Fleming says Massachusetts has increased taxes by 4% on the millionaires, which will give students K through 12 free school lunches. I think that's a good trade-off. After all, if it's not for those kids that are coming up, those corporations and millionaires won't exist. Eric K says, nope, not long gone, can still be overturned. You just as it is okay for 2022 suppression. No, that election won't be overturned. You guys are let me tell you what you guys are doing. They're collecting a lot of a few rich folk, a few thieves are collecting a lot of money, telling Republicans in the Harris County area that they can overturn the election, give us some money to help us take it to court. All you're doing is enriching a few lawyers. That's what they use you guys for. They use you guys as cash cows. They use your hate to take your money. They use your hate to take your money. I say go for it. Maybe when you get super poor, you'll finally see that progressives are the answers to all of your questions. All right, Alistair says, good on Massachusetts, but it's not happening fast enough for the rest of the country. Very true. Michael Rodden says, Paul, if reducing every billionaire to millionaire status means fixing every economic social problem, I'm all for it. I don't mind rich people, but the filthy rich have screwed so many to get there. They are, or get where they are, it's downright gross. Wealth taxes on those who own more than 100 million in assets would be a good step in the right direction. Nobody has even earned $100 million. Nobody has earned $1 billion. Let's be clear here. I have no concern when it comes to socking it to the rich, and it has nothing to do with rich envy. It has everything to do, absolutely everything to do with how they got rich. They got rich on the intellect of others who did not partake in the richness that they've attained. They got rich in all the investment that we, the people of America, invested in everything. Bill Gates would not be rich if we didn't have a strong military, if a lot of blood haven't been spilled by many people who will never take advantage of the billions that Bill Gates make because they kept the country safe. Billionaires were created. Again, we have to be honest. All Americans have sacrificed so that a few psychopaths can get, and I know Bruce doesn't like when I use that word, but more as I research it more, I am sort of coalescing onto the words that billionaires are in fact, and I don't care, even the good ones, they cannot see that acquiring $1 billion is not a good thing for the economy at large. And if you can't see that, you're being extractive, then there's something wrong with you mentally. Something wrong with you mentally. That money should be reinvested right into a system, an economy that has a flaw. The flaw is that people can make money on other people's backs legally. That's what the billionaire is. They didn't earn that. And this is not envy at all. I'm not a person that needs to have a lot of money. If I were, I wouldn't be doing this. There's so much more to do that I had the skills to do. Have the skills to do it. But this is a lot more important. What we're doing here, what all of you are doing here, is a lot more important. Let's see. Lee Grant says, that was a reply to Bruce. Let's see. E2247 just just got into the fold. He says, today's PDR rodeo will be the greatest ever. As usual, you know, I love you, E2247. I love you. I love you. I love you. Eric K says jealous policy. You know what? I tell you what, I've gotten close to everybody just about in our immediate We have several levels of PDR posse, right? And I'm just talking about as far as participation is concerned. There are a lot of people that they support PDR posse, but then they're off to do their business. They just want to do a good thing. And then we have the folks that I really love, the participants in the PDR posse, where we banter at each other, etc. And I feel like I know everyone in the posse, and I can tell you, I think most of the people in this posse are good-hearted people, even if some, in my humble opinion, are a bit confused. Eric Hayes. I love you, but I think you're confused. Anyhow, British MCP says, Paul, it's about 98% humidity for months. This is strange. 6 to 7 degrees and low humidity, but I'll take it. Alistair says, what the hell, Eric, do you find acceptable for school kids hungry? I'm not going to comment there, Alistair, but you're absolutely right. Lee Grant says, God bless Texas for the property tax reduction. I would have much preferred if that went into some investment into water mitigation and so forth. In other words, the amount of money that we are going to get back is so small. But anyhow, let me go ahead and play our first video, and then we'll take it on the other side. Okay, let's go ahead and do that.
Let's go ahead and bring Brother Brian into the fold.
Yeah, am I on?
Yes, you are.
Okay. You constantly repeat yourself about big corporations working off the backs of others. Where would these backs be if it was not for the corporations?
Oh, I love that you asked
Joseph
that.
And Joy Love, have you ever heard of those? They own Love Truck.
What, sir?
They're worth about $9 billion. Where would those employees be if it was not for the hard work and the dedication of two people that started a corporation in the 60s, and now they're worth billions of dollars? Where would they be?
All right.
Would they be peasants?
I love that you said that. I love that you said that. Because nobody builds a corporation for $2 billion and make $2 billion or $10 billion or $9 billion. Here's where I want to take you, Brian. All right. All these billionaires had good ideas. I won't take that away. But their billion-dollar ideas could not have been realized without the other folks that made that billion idea come to fruition. And that they're the ones profiting from that. You see, we have to change our mindset, Brian. You are out there defending people that don't give a damn about you, okay? And you are somehow believing that they could exist without you. And I'm telling you, Brian, you are worth a hell of a lot more than that. You see, you have to change. And this is where I'm going to tell you something. I don't normally say you have to, but I'm going to tell my brother, Brian, you have to change your mindset. Because your mindset currently is that of a servant, okay? And you have to realize that you are much more than just, let me finish, please, my dear brother, I made you speak. You are much more than a slave, Brian. You are the creator of much, whether you notice it or not. Our system teaches you not to think about the power that you have innately. And I'm here to tell you otherwise. So you can call here and scream at me, my brother, for defending you, but I'll continue to do that because there's nobody that has earned $1 billion. And I am going to try my utter best over time to show you that. But Brian, I got to go to Josie, but you get my point. You can call in here every day and we'll have a talk and I'll make sure I'm be respectful to you, sir. All right?
Yeah, I'm not a slave, man. I'm not a slave.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's make sure you're not. I'm trying to make sure you're not. Because if you think a billionaire that you are subservient to makes you anything other than that, my brother. And that's what I'm trying to tell us. We are not. They could not have made any of that without us. Anyway, folks, I want to kind of clarify what I did with Brian there. If you are out there, if you're struggling in life, if you're struggling and you are somehow thinking that those billionaires on Wall Street that are so happy with the billions that they're making from the increase in prices that they've charged you. And if you don't see the equation between either some sort of a Stockholm syndrome of you defending that which oppresses you, That is the mindset that we have to change.
And that is the mindset of a slave. Let me tell you something, okay? You know why slavery lasted as long? And one of the reasons they want to get rid of TikTok, right, is because TikTok, where schools are unable to teach certain things, and a lot of people won't know, let me go research to see if this topic is true or not. There are a lot of educators on TikTok who would bring up a whole lot of subjects and then cause you to go ahead and do some research. And because of what I look at on TikTok, I get a lot of educational material that's fact-based. And I don't take it at face value. I go ahead and after I find it on TikTok, I will go ahead and study it as well, go do the research on it. And what I was trying to explain to Brian is very important, right? It is very important that the reason slavery lasted long, I'm not going to go with the antiseptic slavery of the employee today. I want to start with the chattel slavery that occurred with the people who looked like me, or the indentured servants with the people who looked like some of the Irish or others. But let's stick with the chattel slavery. The only reason that could survive was a complicity with what I call the house slave, the house Negro, and the master, who gave him an edge in believing that he was somehow a cut above and had an interest in maintaining the interest of the master. So that house Negro would, when he hear of a rebellion that's occurring on the slave plantation or on wherever the slaves are working, he would go, "Hey, massa, them people out there, they're thinking about doing that." And then they'll get the next level of slave police, which were the white indentures that were the police force, to come out and put down the rebellion before it occurred or during its occurrence or whatever, right? So that's what occurred. It only lasted as long as the master could keep control of the minds of enough of them. Now let's go to Brian, the guy that I just spoke to on the line. I find so many people, they're out there protecting the corporations. They're fighting harder for the corporations, for these executives, for the right for them to keep their billions. They are fighting harder for them than they would even fight for their wives. They're fighting. We got to protect those billionaires. After all, they're creating jobs and they're taking risks. They're protecting all these things for these billionaires, right? But when it's time to fight a war, Donald Trump told his kid, "If you dare enroll in the military, I will disown you." The rich don't fight wars to keep our country safe that allows them to garner the wealth that they get. That's not even the whole thing. They don't care about the little guy and making sure that, "Oh, you have kids? Let's go ahead and give you the options to ensure that you can take care of your kids." All of that is full of it. Well, Alistair's on the call, so I'm going to pause my narrative here and come to Alistair. Alistair Waters, talk to me, my dear sister.
Dude, there is serious chatter going on about sex slaves at the border. Mm-hmm. Y'all need enlightened if you're going to talk that, because I'll tell you what.
Go ahead, Alistair. Enlighten our audience.
Being trafficked for the sex industry. Why are they doing that? Are they doing that because maybe they are caught up in some bad stuff? Why'd they get caught up in some bad stuff? I don't know. Economy? Or maybe it's people trying to flee a country that doesn't hold up their bargain of taking care of their people, and so they're trying to find somewhere better to go. But the only way they can do it is by selling their bodies, and that's better than selling their bodies is a better equation for them than staying in their home countries that our quote unquote great country helped screw up in the first place? Come on, y'all, wake up.
Thank you, Alistair. Let me just say one other thing. Apparently, Bree says the volume for the I guess it's for the phone is a bit low. I have to figure out if there's something I can do about that. But let me just say this, okay? First of all, let's qualify something. I haven't been reading the part about sex in the sex trade inside of our chat, but let me just qualify something because a lot of our right-wing folks have seen a lion movie that came out recently. I don't remember the name of the movie that came out recently, Alistair. And the movie was trying to make it seem like progressives are supporting the sex trade and all that kind of stuff. But here's the reality again. It always turns out.
Creep.
Right. It always turns out that the right have a very good way of projecting things for some reason. I don't even know why they bring it up, because when we go do the research, then what occurs is we find out that the perverts thank you for giving me the name. It's The Sound of Freedom. Lee Grant put the name of the movie on. It's called The Sound of Freedom. That movie is one of the biggest.
Acclaim.
Right.
Gotten, Grammy nominated BS.
It's the biggest lie, but here's the deal. There is a woman on TikTok right now. She has a website. I don't remember the name of a website. I should have it if I knew the topic would come up. That shows that most of the politicians, that every week they give a status of who's committing sex crimes, specifically sex crimes against kids. And most of the people that are showing up doing sex crime to kids are pastors, family members, Republican politicians, not trans, not gays, not all these other average people, but mostly church-going people, mostly pastors, mostly Republican politicians. Those are the people that are committing the sex crimes. And then they have the nerve to put out a movie.
Big projection because they know it.
Exactly. And then they come out with a movie called The Sound of Freedom that makes it seem like the Democrats have something to do with sex trade or whatever, when they are the ones involved and have been convicted.
Yeah.
Convicted.
Yep.
So I did that video that I made I interviewed her from TikTok. I interviewed her and she had all the data, and she runs the data every single week. Every single week she runs the data. And
it's the lady out of Florida.
Yeah, she's in Florida and New York. She's on TikTok.
Okay.
When I play the next video, I'm going to see if I can find her latest instantiation. Again, it's occupied by pastors, Republican politicians, and again, the data is publicly available. It's not like she can hide the data. It's there for everybody to see. And I'm going to look it up after we start the next video. So what I'm going to do, sir? Anyway, Alistair, do you want to say something else?
No, I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me have a soapbox. And please, for the love of God, y'all, just clean out your dang ears.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alistair. We'll talk later, my friend. All right, folks.
All right,
that was a wonderful Alistair on the line. Anyway, listen. Eric, this is not gaslighting. If you care to look it up, please feel free to do so. All right, continuing. Bruce has some information there, but let's start with Michael. Michael says, "I'm not a slave. Are you working for wages that don't let you live? Between paying rent, utilities, health care, food, are you being squeezed financially? Yeah, you're a wage slave." It's a little bit deeper than that. Even, Rednan, because here's the deal, right? If you are working for a company as an employee, right? And by the way, we all have to do it to some extent or whatever. But here is the kicker. When you were a slave back in the 1800s, the slave master had to do everything to try to keep you alive. He had to feed you, clothe you, make sure that you could last. Because remember, in America, we value capital over humanity. And when human beings were capital, they did what was necessary to keep them in a state in which they could provide a service and work. Again, that is when you hear me talk about capital over humanity, this didn't start in the 1900s and the way they treat employees. This started from slavery. So all of you that are listening to me right now that think I'm overboard or whatever, you just have to follow the money and follow our existence. We took care of slaves because they were a source of income. They were capital. And we don't take care of employees as we should in America. We don't give them the services that we can, because the difference between an employee and a slave is that an employee is expendable. A slave is property. And because property, if you get rid of that slave, you're getting rid of your wealth. If you get rid of an employee, you're getting rid of a problem. And that's where we are today. And until we understand those concepts deep in our hearts, we won't be able to elect the right people to change the belief system that we have, because we have been so programmed into the benevolence of the corporate structure that we don't see what the actual results are. When you fill out those nice papers and read between the lines, and you see how much between the lines it's there to make sure that you are not a burden to the corporation. Bruce says, I have had a professional opinion that psychopath is not a clearly defined term. There are some attempts. The list below is one. Of the people you call psychopaths, I can only name one whose name starts with a T. I hear you, brother. Glibness, superficial charm, grandiose sense of self-worth, need for stimulation, proneness to boredom, pathology, lying, cunning, manipulative, lack of remorse or guilt, shallow, affecti, callous, lack of empathy. Item number 9, parasitic lifestyle, poor behavioral controls, promiscuous or sexual behavior, early behavior problems, lack of realistic terms, implausible, irresponsible item, failure to accept responsibility for one's actions, many short-term marital relationship. I don't, okay, Bruce, I'm going to tell you, I think I disagree with you on one thing that you said. You said of the people you call psychopaths, I can only name one whose last name begins with T and he isn't so rich. But there are a lot of descriptions that you give there that I can give in that list there that I can. And again, remember, I like Bill Gates, and because I think even within this evil economic system, I think he wants to do good. But by the same token, if you listen to him in the early days when all of us were with HAL PC and developing source code on the what's called open source code and all of that, if you take a look at all the letters that he wrote to move away from open source, etc., you'll understand why even Bill Gates, and as much as I like him as a person, that I think he fits some of those terminologies right there. All right, Egberto, why don't you do a show down south? Like in maybe Costa Rica or something? I will. Actually, Roberto Luis and I are supposed to be doing it from Panama. Actually from Colón, my city in Colón that has been going to the dogs. So we are supposed to be doing that. Michael Rones Egberto, one of my friends who I haven't seen in years, gets all his news information from TikTok. He's fallen down so many rabbit holes that it is almost impossible to reach him. I'd ask him to talk about one idea at a time. Then I'd take a couple minutes to do a fact check using the simplest neural search, then read out the reply. He was surprised at the pushback every time. Not sure I'm going to see him again anytime soon. Tell him that he has a house, he has a place to come here. I would like him to join our. He'll feel at home here because we have all kinds of folks here. So try to convince him to come and join us, Michael. Bridge MCP says Lee, but a fascist one did. I don't know that conversation. Mike says, Eric Hayes, Egberto has talked to some people about the southern border, but the only ones he's talked to are for open borders and free. That doesn't make any sense, Mike Cisak. You don't even really understand what open borders mean relative to the American system itself. Let's continue here. Lee Grant says, the sound of freedom. Thank you for giving us that one. Until Egberto is able to cure Eric and Daniel, democracy will always be under threat. That is true. Lee Grant, why are we talking about slavery when cities like San Francisco are rotten from their centers? Well, I think there are two different issues. Mike says, I believe MCP because there is still a massive fascist bureaucracy currently going after Trump. Actually, Trump is the fascist bureaucracy. Bruce says, I can't assign a label based on one or two of those traits. By the same token, I can pick opposite traits that disqualify your diagnosis. Let's say they have some psychopathic trends and agree. I think we can leave it there, Bruce. I don't disagree with that last statement that you made there. We can say they have some of the traits, but don't necessarily say they're actual psychopaths. I can live with that. All right, folks, let's go ahead and go to the next video, and then we'll come right back. This is what I did this morning at KPFT that I think have some import. So here we go with this one, my brothers and sisters. A lot of us that are from another country that comes here, and if we are from a country where the people who call themselves progressives in that country are pretty much just as vile as what I call the capitalists, in that the people there suffered. In other words, if we take a look at Venezuela, if we take a look at Cuba and other places, you would hear whenever progressives in America talk, many people from these countries that escape that what that country has done to them, they will say, well, what do you want? Do you want to become Venezuela or Cuba? And even some Americans have jumped on that bandwagon and say, what progressive wants would just simply turn us into Cuba and Venezuela. To which I say that is really a cop-out. And that is a cop-out that was instilled in our minds by many of the people who run our economic system in the United States, because that's what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that if you are asking for rights as a citizen of the United States, if you are asking for good health care, if you are asking for good social services, meaning good care for your kids, meaning that it's either subsidized or making sure that the employer has a plan, or, actually I prefer this is done by we the people, have a plan to make sure that everybody who wants to work can have daycare for their kids, so that you don't have that mental penalty about how are your kids doing. We want to ensure that our roads are safe. I mean, we want to have all these good things for society that actually cost. There's not only an opportunity cost, but there's a real cost to do these things. The corporate structure or economic system would want you to believe that those kinds of things that people require make business inefficient. And by the way, it does make business inefficient if inefficiency is defined as doing things not related specifically to that business. But you know what? Inefficiency many times is humane. So to the people who take exception to when progressives want to do things positive for society, good health care, good child care, good family care, basic income to ensure that we don't have people on the streets starving, to equate that to Venezuela, to equate that to Cuba, to equate that to any country that is mistreating its people, so that we as an American society are not privy to those good things, is not only a cop-out, but it is a lie. It is a lie that we have allowed to flourish within our society. And if we want examples of places that work, every other industrialized country, they may have their problems, but the one thing they don't have is a failure of treating their people the appropriate way. You would never hear of people in Scandinavian countries going bankrupt because of healthcare. You will never hear about people in Scandinavian countries that allow their people to be abused through telemarketing and all these different types of forms in which our economic system take advantage. You have heard many older folk call my program here Politics Done Right. At the time, it used to be at noon. And I remember this woman calling me and talking to me about this company that they get her. It's not one company, it's many companies. They get her every single time with their telemarketing schemes that is legal. They lie because, remember, We have the right to lie. Corporations have the right to lie to you. And she would call and say, what can I do? And I said, ma'am, this is a time where until we get laws, we have to take personal responsibility, which means we shouldn't have to do this. We shouldn't have to do this, but tell folks, no, we're not. Somebody tries to sell you something on the phone, you hang up. If it's not you making that positive motion towards that thing, disregard it. So, I mean, again, I want to reiterate, too often, we allow ourselves to be brainwashed into believing that we just cannot get the things that we as a people deserve as a society. And it is something that we have to bump up destroy our gullibility index, because they constantly, when I say they, and the they is sort of a nebulous thing, because when the Powell memo was written, this is a document that said progressives are getting Americans I'm paraphrasing, of course, but progressives are getting Americans too smart. And in the process of American getting smart, it will affect business. It will affect business. So we must infiltrate the churches. So we must infiltrate the schools. So we must infiltrate everything to continue to mislead people into continuously voting against their interests, preventing them from doing what's right to make society better for them. And that is what has cauterized in America. It began before. I mean, we always talk about it really being instantiated under Reagan, but it really had its genesis even before Reagan. And it is something I hope we, with programs like Politics Done Right and others, I hope it is something where we can talk to the American people and say, let's not fall for the con. Let's all work towards what's best for all of us. Folks, I'm asking you so kindly right now to please support the program, ensure that we can continue to have a platform to give the word to the American people, give the word to talk about what we can do together as a society. Absolutely so, folks. Absolutely so. Let me go ahead, and Lee Grant says drag queen are caught with kids all the time. That's also a lie, Lee Grant. That is actually a lie. And she does the report around, not only in Texas, but around the entire country. And there were zero trans and zero cross-dressers that were caught with kids. Zero drag queens. I wish you could hear the list. Zero. I tell you what, go ahead, and all these records are public. Go ahead and find me a record of anybody that has been convicted, any drag queen convicted with molesting a child. Please find the records and compare them with what the other folks. It's not true. And here is the thing. If you're coming to me, you're coming to hear the truth. Now that you've heard the truth, the question is, will you stop lying about it? Drag queens seem to have a proclivity for being around young children. That's not true either. Pastors do. Evangelical pastors do. The record is clear. You may not like it, but those are the people being convicted. Okay? Why drag queen story hour? Because they want to be in the community. Again, don't let these people fool you. Stick with the facts. Let's stay educated. Let's stay knowledgeable. Let's not be fooled. Let's look at the reality. Mike C says that a UK drag queen was set to host a Welsh community first event gay pride parade and had been arrested after being caught in a sting. Okay, maybe that may be true. But again, how many pastors were caught? How many family members were caught? How many police officers were caught? Read, folks. read and stop allowing yourself to be used with false narratives to create bad issues. Read. That's all it takes. Read. One last video to play for you guys before we get out of here. Let's go ahead and get busy with that video. Here we go with that video. Come on. Where are you? I think you're here. That is a story that we have all over Latin America and other countries in the world. And there's a reason why. It's a lot easier to deal with dictators than it is to deal with democracy. We love to claim democracy at home, but we don't particularly like democracies overseas. And the reason we don't like democracies overseas is if we want to be able to, our corporations to do certain things on a plantation in Costa Rica, if we want to able to do something on a plantation or on a mountaintop in Honduras, we don't want to have the people voting for that. It takes too much time for a corporation to do that. So we want to have a dictator that can enforce that. A quick story that you're causing me to talk about is what's occurring right now in Honduras. Honduras is being sued by American companies right now because the previous government signed a contract that in effect allowed companies to establish mini governments in Honduras, where they control a particular territory with their own judiciary and all these sort of things, right? I mean, they want to go ahead and create these business zones in Honduras. A democratic establishment comes in now. I mean, government comes in and say, wait a minute, you are selling our sovereignty to private American corporations or private corporations in general. We can't have that. This contract is null and void. So they're being sued for 2/3 of their GDP. That you don't hear about that in the news over here in the United States, right? You don't hear about that kind of a stuff going on. So I mean, when we go to certain countries and hear, oh, they don't like us over there. It's not that they don't like Americans. It's that they don't like what corporations have come to the country and do to many of their people, many of them peasants. So that's the issue, sir.
So to summarize, you hit it out of the ballpark once again. I am not surprised.
Johnny,
the bottom line here, the American corporations dictate our foreign policy. They always have, and I'm afraid they always will, unless we rise up in our way, the way they did with Fidel.
Thank you, Johnny. Beforehand, let me just throw it back to the studio.
Jack has some observations too.
Come on in, brother Jack.
Why does business prefer to do business with dictators? Is they can pay them a lot of money, and they do the work of suppressing the people in the country, and we go down there with our embargoes, our blockades, and our sanctions, and wall off the country. And they're paying out, to solve their lawsuits with, while they're taking their GDP away, and the people suffer. They end up having to pay taxes to run the country, and this ties into why immigration is moving north. They're driving them north with poverty.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't realize that, Jack, and that is, a lot of what we're seeing at our border is a direct result of our policies in Central America. So, but we as Americans, when we watch the news, we don't see all this news. I gave you the story about what's occurring in Honduras right now. Nobody talked about that here in the United States. So the American people can't understand then what's the genesis of that. So then the Republicans can demagogue about immigration, and and Democrats, because nobody is interested in learning these other stories, just take it, or they just they don't give the full argument. And I say quite often that too often our politicians, all of them, left and right, they think too little of the intelligence of the American people. If the American people are made aware of things, we would have much better policy. We'd have much better politicians. And that's probably why they don't want the Americans to know too much, because, hey, we may start voting in good politicians. And that's not a good thing, because while we are a democracy, that while corporations allow us to be a democracy for certain things, remember, a corporation is not a democracy. It's a top-down thing where the lowest level, the employees, the antiseptic slaves are nothing but widgets, and everything else is then made on the executive level. It's not like, let's say, in places like, let's say, Germany, where sitting on the board of corporations by law, you have to have the worker. It's not there. So, I mean, we have to understand those things. Howard Reynolds, come on in, my brother.
I've got a question for you about the Honduras thing.
Yes.
What court is going to decide that? Is it going to be a United States court, a world court, a third country? Who decides that?
I think they have their own courts. Folks, I'm asking you so kindly right now to please support the program, ensure that we can continue to have a platform to give the word to the American people, give the word to talk about what we can do together as a society. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join. Absolutely. Please join or please subscribe to our network. That is how we can continue to tell the truth. That is how we can continue to break the lies that are out there. You know, today, you see how we dispel that stuff about queers doing more damage to kids. It's not true. When we have our brother, I'm losing it right now. Lee Grant talking about, well, why is it that who are the people? I think the drag queens are having children hour. Why not? Do you complain when the straight queens have children hour? Do you complain when the mothers, a group of mothers have children hour? Why would you complain about drag queen having children hour? Drag queen have children. Drag queens love children. Drag queen is just a group like any other group, and they may want to do that. What's the problem with doing that? As long as they're not affecting kids, as long as they're not attacking kids, as long as they're not sexually abusing kids. And guess what? The people who are sexually abusing kids are the pastors. The people who are sexually abusing kids are the police officers. I'm talking about outside in greater numbers. The people who are doing kids are Republican politicians. You know, I mean, again, my friend, she has been doing New Girl NY. She has been doing the research, and she has shown who are the people that are really abusing kids sexually. And it's not the queers. It's not the cross-dressers. It's not most other folks. The vast majority of people afflicting sex crimes on children, as Bridge pointed out, are in fact white men. I'm sorry, that's just what the numbers tell you. And you can research it on your own. That's where we go. It's hard to hear, but it's the truth. And the numbers say it. The research says it. So please, it's important for you to understand truth. Anyway, folks, thank you so kindly for being here. I'd like to spend a couple of minutes asking you to do several things, okay? One is I'd love if you are on YouTube right now to subscribe to the channel. Whether you subscribe financially or not is one thing, but I'd like you to subscribe to the channel. I would love as well if you will support the channel by giving a contribution either through Facebook or YouTube. I mean, just push right under the video. There are options to do that. Alternatively, I'd like to ask you to go ahead and visit politicsdoneright.com/support. politicsdoneright.com/support. That is a good method. We have several different ways under that link how you can support the channel, the program, to make sure we can continue doing what we're doing. And what I'd love, another way of doing it as well is subscribing to our newsletter. Our newsletter, you can subscribe to it at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. If you're not a subscriber, remember, if you subscribe to my newsletter, all of my books will eventually be on Substack so that you can read it as well. Again, right now we have 2 books there. It's Worth It: How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relative Friends and Neighbors, as well as Tribulations of a Latino Caribbean Man. That's my book, called Tribulations of a Latino Caribbean Man. It never took away my smile. Check it out. But again, please go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter or politicsdoneright.com/support. And please help us. Egberto Willie, it's getting really hard to sit and listen to BS, really hard, and have you read it and talk about it, missing other comments. Let me tell you something, Bridge. It's hard, but I'd like you to call into the show. You can do that for me and shake me up with your voice. Call in and say, Egberto, read this. I can, because you put the comment and I put, what happens is, it just happens to be that I'm reading the comments and I read something that is close by. Alistair called in to straighten up the group. Please, my dear, beautiful Bridge, call in as well. I'd love to hear your voice. In fact, why don't you call in now and say what you just wrote? Give me a call, please. 281-823-7747. You haven't called in a while. We want to hear your voice. We want to hear your voice. I'm waiting before I close the show down. Let's see if you're going to give me that honor. 281-823-7747. 281. No, call in now. I'm going to hold the show up for 1 minute for you just to hear your voice. 281-823-7747. We can hold the show for a minute to get you to say a word here. I would love you to call in right now. We still have enough folks listening that you'll make a difference, and plus it'll be heard on the podcast. So give me a call, girl. Give me a call. I want people to hear your voice. Let's see if you'll give me that honor. 713. All right. There you go. All right. Talk to me, my dear, beautiful lady.
Hey, Egberto.
Talk to me. Let everybody hear your voice and tell them what you told me, because it makes sense.
Well, it's really hard to listen to absolute crazy talk all the time. And then you comment on it, and I understand you're looking at 3 screens of scrolling messages and you skip some, whatever, that's fine. But there's some really good comments on there. And then you have an argument with Daniel Liddell, or you correct Eric for the 50th time, or Lee says something that's absolutely ludicrous, and I think they're both good guys. But not Liddell. I think there's something wrong with him. But I think that you should really, I don't know how you can choose to not listen to some of those comments. Shouldn't be read. They're crap.
Let me, in my defense, and by the way, that's the reason I like an open forum, because just like you come in here and say that, I would have loved, first of all, I'll be honest, a lot of things scroll and I miss things a lot of times, and I missed a lot. In fact, it just scrolls. So I missed a lot. But what I want you to do is call in and say your piece. I want Lee Grant to call in and say his piece. And when I stray and not seeing things, our brother told us, get a telephone line, make sure that we can talk to you. So the reason I'm holding this program back is for you to say your piece, which is correct. Mea culpa.
Well, I understand you're having a show, so I don't want to interrupt it.
No. Wait, Bridge, wait. I want to push back there. This is our show. This is a PDR posse. That's what this is. And this is what I want to be different than other programs. I want this program to be where if you have something to say, you have something to say. And if I miss it in the chat and you think it's something to say, you call into the program and say, Egberto, what about this? And that's why I held it back to hear your voice, ma'am.
Thank you. I just it's gotten to the point that sometimes I don't even want to go on the show.
Well, please, and for everybody who just heard what Bridge said, sometimes it gets to the point where she doesn't want to go on the show. Please make that be your reason to come to the show. Anyway, we cannot allow others to break the system. That is how it works, Bridge. Honestly, that is how it works. To run you down on many times stupidity. And I don't use those words on the show proper, but the idea is to run you down. That's how the right has taught its people. To just go ahead and not think. They have taught them not to think critically. That's why they're so much against critical thought. And if we if we close the door to that, we leave it that way. If we coalesce to saying, I'm not going to go to the program anymore because I don't want to listen to the crazies, they win. Now, you can correct me. You can correct me when I don't give you and others enough time. And I will adjust, making sure the time is more equal. But the thing about folks... Go ahead.
I was going to say, Eric just said, don't invalidate others' point. And I don't. I invalidate false information.
Exactly.
And they don't listen. They don't read the posts. They don't read the links. They're just blinders on, and they just have like a bone with a dog. When they post things, I look at them. I want to see what they have to say. I want to see where they're getting their information from. Most of it's from ridiculous sites, but that's where they're getting their information from.
Right.
And it's like open up your mind. You're not stupid. I don't think these guys are stupid. I like them. I mean, Eric and Lee, they're funny sometimes. I mean, they crack me up. So I just don't like that they won't give me the same, or Michael Rudman the same respect to go and read what we put up. There's got to be a common ground. It's we the people. So it's just annoying.
I get it, and that's why I really wanted to. No. I wanted to hear your voice. Again, this is our program, and everybody has that right. Thank you so kindly. You have a wonderful weekend, Bridge, and for everyone listening, a wonderful weekend, everybody.
Everybody
okay?
on the PDR. Everybody
Absolutely.
on the PDR. Have a good weekend.
All right. Thank you for calling in, my dear. Bye-bye. All right, folks, I got to end the show. My name is Egberto Willis. Please support us. politicsdoneright.com/support. politicsdoneright.com/support. I'm going to put it in the chat one more time. And also, please, please, please subscribe to our newsletter. Remember always, this is your program, and we do what we have to do. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out! We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.